Good morning. Thanks for joining me at Coffee with Kory. So much to talk about today, as there is every week, right? When we got done having coffee last Saturday, Jossie and I drove to Vermilion, got to spend the day with Pierce and a lot of his fraternity brothers. It was Parents' Day at Teak, so we spent plenty of time at the house that day, went downtown and had lunch, and then came back to the fraternity house. And Jossie and I think were the last two parents there. we had a great time. Met a lot of new people, which is always a great time, and rekindled some friendships with people that we hadn't chatted with for quite a while, and that was great too. So all in all, an amazing day, and we really appreciated the hospitality of all those young men to welcome us into the Teak House and spend some time with them. The following day, Jossie and I got to spend one-on-two time with Elle. She wanted to come over to Grandma and Papa's house by herself. And we did all the things, watched some TV or in the movie theater, played in the sport court. We didn't get to do outside stuff as much because it was cold the last Sunday, but we took magic on a little walk. And the highlight for me though was Elle and I are walking into the sport court, and she looks up at me and she goes, "Papa, I like being here by myself." And I'm like, "That's great. You come over anytime you want, and we can always hang out together." So that was a fun day. On Monday, Clark and I made the trip to Rochester. He had a full day of appointments at Mayo and more checkup stuff, and so Tara wasn't available to be able to go along. When he asked, man, I was all over it. It was great to be able to have that opportunity. I really appreciated you, buddy, for being willing to do the over and back in one day. It was a long day, and I can't imagine how taxing all of that is for you when I know you're a long ways from 100%. But I appreciated it, and it was despite the reason for our road trip, it was great to be able to visit that much one-on-one. And Clark actually gave me passed along, maybe is a better way, some great insight and advice that he learned from his dad many years ago, and we're gonna close with that today. So we're gonna pin that for a second, and I want to tell you guys about. It was some sort of an ESPN special that was playing the other morning when I was at the gym, and it was about Armando Galarraga. Some of you guys might know him by name. Most of you probably will not. He's a pitcher in the major leagues. I believe he's retired now. I know he's retired now. And it was about when he almost pitched a perfect game. Now, if you're a sports person at all, you probably know a perfect game for a pitcher is when they retire all 27 batters in a row. There's no walks, there's no errors by his teammates fielding the ball in the outfield, there's no hits. 27 batters up, 27 batters down over 9 innings. And over the hundreds of thousands of baseball games ever played, there's been 24 of those. 24. I believe it's one of the rarest accomplishments in sports, is to pitch a perfect game in the major leagues. And this entire documentary, story, TV show, whatever, was about when he almost pitched one in 2010. 26 batters up, the 27th batter hits a slow roller, I believe right down to the first baseman. Armando Galarraga comes off the pitcher's mound, runs to first base. The first baseman throws it to him. He touches the bag just ahead of the runner, and the umpire called him safe. And it was, that was before the days when there was instant replay review, and there was outrage because everybody everybody in the entire stadium knew the guy was out. The umpire that made the call, Jim Joyce is his name, and he'd been an umpire for a very long time, well respected, and made a mistake. He simply made a mistake. And of course, after the game, so then the next batter was retired as well. So oftentimes this perfect game of sorts is called the 28 up, 28 down, because he had to face 28 guys, but he got all of them out. That one call was just wrong. The real story in this is how it played out afterwards, right? Because it didn't take long for the umpire, especially after the game, to know that he made a mistake. So he went to the post-game press conferences, fielded all of the questions, was alone in the clubhouse afterwards, very, very distraught, felt horrible that he had, his mistake had taken this perfect game from this young man. And the Armando Galarraga's manager, again, a guy that's been in the major leagues a long time, his name's Jim Leland. He went in to talk to the umpire, and as you might expect, he was upset too, right? I mean, he had his player, his guy, robbed of a career-defining historical feat by this guy's mistake, and he went in and he told him, "Don't worry about it. Don't dwell on it. Mistakes happen, and you're a great umpire, and you'll get through it." Well, the umpire, Jim Joyce, was getting death threats, his family, everything. Well, in baseball, they play a game the next day in the same stadium. And the major leagues gave him the opportunity to not umpire that game. He did not take that. He went out, he was scheduled on the next day to be the umpire behind the plate, to be calling balls and strikes. So clearly even a more prominent role in the game. He went out, fans, mixed reactions, some trying to support him, plenty of others hollering and jeering at him and booing him. One of the other things that happens in the major leagues, I had forgotten about this, was that before the game, the managers from both sides send their lineup cards or take their lineup cards out to the umpire that's going to be running the game from behind the plate to indicate and document who's going to be playing the game. And the manager, Jim Leland, sends Armando Galarraga out with the lineup card to meet with Jim Joyce, the umpire, and hand him the lineup card. And it was his Jim Leland's way of giving the baseball player, Armando Galarraga, the opportunity to see the umpire in a public setting, put his arm around him and tell him it was okay, because everybody makes mistakes. This was just a really, really public one. And I thought that was, I remembered part of that, but it was cool to see that story, because it was a really touching event, and had all of the people involved in that event handled anything differently, it could have been so much worse than it was. But it actually turned into a great show of sportsmanship and human spirit, which I thought was pretty amazing. And so we're gonna take one step back here. Of those 24 perfect games pitched in the major leagues, there have been some giants of the game that have pitched perfect games. Randy Johnson, who a lot of you guys would know, Sandy Koufax, Cy Young, some of the biggest pitching names in the history of the major leagues have pitched perfect games. But then there's plenty of other guys that you've never heard of. Dallas Braden, Mark Burley, Philip Humber, I think his name is. And the part that I found interesting about all of this is that some of those perfect games might still be talked about of the guys that I mentioned that you maybe wouldn't recognize their names. Armando Galarraga's 28 out perfect game will live forever, and probably is more talked about because of how it went down than had Jim Joyce just made the correct call. It's kind of funny how life works that way. The bit of advice and the point that this all comes back to is what Clark told me as we came home from Rochester the other night was, he said, my dad told me that E plus R equals O. The event plus the reaction equals the outcome. And the part that you can always control, the individual, the part that you can always control is the R. It's the reaction. You can't always control the events that occur in your life, and you don't always have a direct impact on the outcome or complete control over the outcome, but you can always control your reaction. And frequently, of course, in this instance that we just talked about, the reaction of all of those people involved in that event are what made the outcome so much better than it could have been. So much better. And so I thought that was very great advice and something that I wanted to make sure I passed along to all of you, because the E plus the R equaling the O happens to all of us in so many different ways almost every day. And if we will always focus on the R, on our reaction and how we respond to those events in our lives, that'll be the part that carries you through it and hopefully positively impacts the outcome. So thanks so much for being with me again today, you guys. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you again next week at Coffee with Kory.